like a condition. Sorry, initialize a condition. A condition is that I will loop until a is equal to 10, right? So a is equal to 10, right? So I'm gonna loop 10 times. So first I'm gonna initialize the condition a is equal to 10, right? And then second of all, I'm gonna compare the condition. So what I'm gonna do is basically do the while a is greater than 0. Well, a is greater than 0. So when a is 10, when I'm getting to this for loop, 10 is greater than 0. So it's going to go into this while loop. And then it's going to print the hello word. Hello word right here. So you may be tempted to think that this is going to be the end of the while loop. So let's analyze this piece of code. I know there's a lot of confusion going on right here, but let's analyze this piece of code. Let's calm down, take a step back, take a deep breath, take a sip of coffee, and then maybe analyze this code. So first, I want to initialize a condition, and that condition is a is equal to 10. That's a variable. Second, inside of when I initialize a while loop, don't need this parentheses. When I initialize a while loop, I want to compare the condition. I want to make sure that as long as this condition is true, this is how you would interpret it. As long as a is greater than 0, execute the while loop. As long as a is greater than 0, execute the while loop. In other words, execute whatever under the while loop right here. Execute with hello word, right? As long as a is greater than 0.
What did you do?
So far,
okay, so
is there any questions, comments, concerns?
A while loop. I can teach you that. Yes, it will just keep printing as long as a is
so far,
greater than 0.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
Okay, so now can you answer
you
this
might
question?
Be tempted to run this code right now. But if you do something like that, you will get an error. And not to be so much an error. Kyle, don't worry too much about it. The reason, okay. I should do something. So Vedika, it should do something because it prints over here. So it should do something. The while loop right here. When you do a is equal to 10, while a is greater than 0, print hello word. It should do something. But it's very error prone. Again, I know there's a lot of confusions for now because for while loop is slightly complicated than the while loop. But again, this application is a lot. Will hello word be printed 10 times if a is equal to 10? Yeah, it will be printed 10 times. In fact, if you print this and if your in fact it'll be printed 10 times. But well, let's run it. Let's run it and see. Oh no. You see? Not only it print this thing 10 times, it print this thing a bunch of times. It print this thing infinitely many times. So to say. It print this thing a lot of times. To the point that I have to put a control C over here to terminate this sort of like print thing. So why does this happen? Why exactly does this this thing happens right here? Let's talk about this. When a is equal to 10, what happened? Well, we initialize. Let's actually maybe I want to make a new share to the whiteboard. So this a is equal to 10, right? So let's try to do something. This thing right here. Yeah, awesome. So this is a thing. So we have the empty variable named a, and a is equal to 10, right? So this is the one thing that we discussed in the very start of the very start of the session, right? All the sessions. So if I do while
Will you make a flower out of these?
a is greater than 0.
No, right now I need you to finish your work.
So is this condition true all the time?
Go finish
So
the
when I do
work.
A is greater than 0, is this considered this condition
So
this
you told me to
condition
return
the
back.
condition
I'm gonna
true?
return
No!
back.
A is greater than 10.
No!
Greater than
Then
0
show mom that you are
naturally.
hard
So
worker
it
on
prints
the
hello
map.
world. Prints.
Got it?
For the time being, I would abbreviate this as
But did
HL.
you know after mom first me?
So it prints hello world.
That's gonna
Right?
be
Next, after it
What?
prints hello world. So this is the console right here. Imagine this
How did
is
I
the
hurt you?
console. Imagine this is like the output of the console.
That's hard.
You're just making stuff up, huh?
It's not. I didn't make it up.
This is console.
You told her?
First time in the iteration, it prints hello world.
Because
Hello
I
world,
made it.
right? Then after printing hello world,
How?
it goes
I'm
back
here.
into this
I have
thing
no
right
idea
here.
what
It then
it is.
keeps comparing. This A, which is now 10, is greater than 0. Yes, A is still greater than 0. It prints hello world.
I was here, and then you just.
And then it goes back again. On the second iteration, after second, it goes back again. Is A
It
greater
was
than
an
0?
accident.
It
Yeah.
was on
Happened.
purpose.
Over.
How would I calculate it? You land there.
Infinitely times. It keeps printing hello
If
world.
you don't want to work,
And this
it's fine.
doesn't
I'm
change.
just gonna return it and get my money back.
Oh yeah. Okay, just a few questions.
I really have no time to.
Yes, definitely.
Wallace,
Veneca.
I have
It
my
prints
work to
hello
do.
world to
You have your work to
infinity.
do. You have done
It
zero work.
prints hello world to
today.
infinity. Why? Because A keep being 10. 10 is
Not even
always
finishing
forever,
the drawing for
forever
Papa, not even
greater
doing
than 0.
piano practice.
So that's why it keeps
not even
printing
doing
I did.
hello
piano
world
practice.
to the infinity
not very
many
much.
times over. And it doesn't stop.
did.
It doesn't stop
Anyway,
until
just
even
go
it
finish
doesn't stop
the
until you
drawing
actually
and the
interrupt the
math.
keyboard using the keyboard,
I don't
or
have
you
time to
actually like
lose
do something
with
like
you.
shut down Replit.
Just go do
or
it.
something, right? So
And then
why does that happen? Because you don't
when you
have the third
finish, I
condition.
will be a happy mom.
So what did I
If
do?
you don't finish, don't step
So
on
let's
Gordon's
I'm gonna
laptop.
share this Replit again. So what did I do? I said this is the first condition, which you initialize the condition. Second of all, you compare the condition. But there's another important factor that I haven't introduced, the third condition, which is the third condition, which is incrementation, and decrementation, or I would say slash decrementation, because you can only do it. So incrementation and decrementation, right? So if you go back to something like here, if you go back to this, you go back to the something like here, the reason why this gets to infinity a lot of times is exactly because Veneca is right. The reason why you got this thing to infinity is because you don't actually, changes the value of A, right? So how can you make this thing stop? To make this thing stop, at every single iteration, you need to change the value of A. Let me restate the fact. At every single iteration, you need to change the value of A such that when A is equal to 0, it will escape the while loop and then, finish its execution. So this is a condition, right? This is condition. We have to do it somehow so that when the last time when it compares the A, it will escape the while loop. So the mission, what's called the ultimate mission, is to escape the while loop. Mission. Oh, come on. The mission. Maybe I could give the text here. Mission. Escape the while loop. Mission below that is escape the while loop. And how to do it? How can we exactly do something like that? Well, luckily, we can do the decrementation by putting A equals A minus 1. So what does this thing do? What this thing do is that at every single iteration from 10, so let's keep track of A. So when print hello world, so let's try to reset this thing. Let's try to reset the console. Let's try to reset the console. Okay, let's try to reset this thing. So what does this thing do? So this is the decrementation part. This is the third step that I'm talking about. This is the third step I was talking about. The decrementation and incrementation. But in this case, we're going to do this is called decrementation. Decrement. Decrement. It's called decrement, which means decrement increment means to either add by 1 or subtract by 1. Decrement means to subtract by 1, while increment means to add by 1. So why is this thing so important in the while loop? Because if you don't do change A right now, A is going to stuck in there infinitely many times. So what you do it? So if I do the H right here, when it print accidentally change something like this. Okay, cool. So when I do H and L over here, after I print H and L, A is going to be decrement by 1. A is going to be updated from 10 to 9. Right? And then, if we go back, I compare, is 9 greater than 0? Yes, 9 is greater than 0. Keep printing H. And then decrement, and then go to this line, and decrement A. A, right now, is going to update it from 9 to 8. Okay, and then go back to right here, and go back to right here, the condition, and then go comparing. Is 8 greater than 0? Yes. So let's go to the while loop and print HL. Hello word. And then keep decrementing. Right? So for every single iteration, so you keep decrementing. This is a variable. Until when? Until
anything.
When A is equal to 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. So when A is equal to 0, you're going to go back to right here and say, 0 greater than 0. Actually, we know 0 is equal to 0, but 0 is not greater than 0. So when this condition is false, we're going to escape the while loop. We're not going to print hello world again. We're going to escape the while loop. We're going to go to the next thing below right here. So if I go and do this in the code, if I do the third conditions, if I do something like A equals A minus 1, this should be able to print me 10 hello words. 10 hello words. So I'm going to pause there. Is there any questions, comments, concerns on this while loop operation? I want to compare the output for for loop and the while loop. They are the same. They are printing the same thing. In fact, I need to change the picture right here. Hello word for while loop and for while loop and for loop. They all print the same thing.
Looks like
you see, for loop, we actually need 8 lines of code. For while loop, we need actually 4 lines of code. This, and this. Crazy, right? But it means the same thing. They mean the same thing. But now again, after we learned about this, what is important while loop? Well, I'm gonna show you some applications of while loop. Again, let's go back to the password protection. We're gonna write some password protection. We're gonna write some more password protection, programming. So before I move on to the next topic,
what is that?
Is there any questions, comments, concerns on the while loop part?
It's okay. I know those stuff too.
But the reason why he does not take classes, I think, so that other people can follow along without going how come you're not showing me?
Oh, Jonah, why do I call it that? I don't know. Why do I call it while loop? So does your question mean why do I call it while loop or yes,
Okay.
while loop?
Dentist
While
office
loop. So
period,
the reason
it is
why
important
is that
spelling because
you're gonna loop.
You don't.
So I'll say
You don't.
while this condition is, so which means that if I do while this thing like this, I would say while this condition
will go bad.
A is true.
Because I didn't,
It's true.
well, like,
Execute the while loop.
didn't have space to go like.
So that's the reason why I called it while loop. While this condition, actually let me
News
define.
was Mac got a new toothbrush.
Yeah. So while loop, it means that while this condition A greater than 0 is true, execute the while loop. That's what it means. It's called using a while loop. But if we're using a for loop, you do specify like how many conditions you're gonna stop, right? When exactly you're gonna stop. And to be honest, while loop is actually a more versatile loop variance than for loop. And I'm gonna for this example, I'll say while this condition is true, execute the while loop. For this thing, I know specifically how many times it's gonna loop over already, right? And this if you're still wondering, these examples might just be very similar to this example. In fact, while loop is a more versatile invariance of for loop. It's actually a more advanced it's a more advanced utility that you will come across a lot often. And why is that? I'm gonna if there's no more questions, I'm gonna move on to the next topic, which is the use of while loop in password protection. Again, I know I introduced password protection already, but last time we talked about like how many we're gonna loop until the user enter correct password, right? So in practicality, in reality, there's no such thing of like infinite loop until the user entered the correct password. We're gonna have trials, right? We only give like the users or the users 5 trials to enter the password. If beyond the 5 trials, then they don't even get the correct password, it's gonna block them, right? That's a more realistic example. I'm gonna use a while loop for that. I said that while this condition is true, while this condition is true, execute the while loop. Otherwise, we don't do that. So before I move on to the applications of while loop, is there any questions, comments, final call? I mean, it's not really correct in terms of game design. Gaming is more like lesson action. Triasha, where did I lose you? Where did I lose you? Alright, so if there's no more questions, so let's get talking about the applications. Again, I'm gonna try to comment out this thing. Okay, so let's try to make something. So again, last time we talked about lists, right? Let's talk about lists like a supermarket, like cart in the supermarket, right? Cart in the supermarket, right? You can have like an empty list. So imagine whenever you go to the supermarket, you always need to have a cart, right? So imagine the cart as an empty list. So I will say username is equal to maybe Don Quixote 107. I know Charizard, Gmax, Gmax Charizard. I know, like big fan of Charizard. And then maybe Mewtwo 2. I know some other anyone maybe I know yes Yasuo stuff Yasuo 70720 something like that. So those are the list of username. This is the list of username. Pikachu. Okay, so cool. Pikachu. Okay, also like a Pikachu. Okay, Pikachu. I mean any numbers? So 678. So 678. Yeah, cool. Pikachu. So we have a list of username. Remember, this is a username. This is a username. This is username. So I'll put it. Imagine having usernames.
Remember what problem
and passwords.
I didn't write the
passwords.
word.
You can do it together.
Stored
No, it's
in
because
the database. Right.
No,
So I say database is because they're stored in the list, right? They're stored in the list. Imagine the list is the database. The list, aka and database, or list.
Are your
right?
hands clean?
Imagine the list is more or less the container. This is more like container. Database, list, container, they're the same. But in Python, this is the definition. The list is more or less like a sort of like a container of values. So let's put the square bracket over here and put a semicolon and actually separate the items. So this is the first item on the list. This is the second item in the list. So that's why we can actually store the database, right? So let's define the password. Password. Maybe the password for Don Quixote, maybe I know. Don Quixote is actually like a Spanish. So maybe let's name it ABCD. ABCD for the sake of convenience. So say the Gmax Charizard. Let's name his arch enemy, the Blastoise. The Blastoise. Gmax Blastoise. Yeah, is arch enemy. Cool. Gmax Blastoise. So the password for Mewtwo is Mew, right? Because there's the carbon copy of it. Yasuo, the password for Yasuo is probably Yone. Yeah. Don't worry too much about like not understanding these references. These are just game references. Yone, light score. Okay, the password for Pikachu is maybe Ash because probably Ash really loves Pikachu. Right? Anyway, yeah, cool. So we have 5 usernames corresponding with 5 passwords. So that's great. Yeah, Kyle, this League of Legends. So password for Yaku is Yone. So I really love that. I really like the music video. So awesome. So now we have usernames and password. That's great. So now we have you have a bank of username and a bank of passwords, right? So we have all this thing. So let's ask the user for a password. So let's print something. Print welcome to the gaming center. Yeah, maybe please enter your password, your username. Please enter your username, right? So I can just, instead of doing print statement, I'm gonna do the username equals. So I'm just putting underscore right here just to distinguish the username and these usernames. Although it's more distinguishable if it just, that's why I put the S over here. But let's just make it somewhat even more distinguishable, right? So let's do the SDR input. Right? So let me do something like this. Awesome. So please enter your username. So right. So I want to check. So now let's use a while loop to check this thing. So I can do like while username. Not in what? That's actually username. Not in username. Not in username. So what does not in does? So I'm just basically check if the username entered by the user is maybe is in the username list, something like that. So check if the username entered by user is in the list or not. If it's not in the list, we go into the while loop. If it's not going to the list, we go into the while loop. What do? We basically print something. We're going to print error, unable to find username. Please try again. Please try again. And then we're going to prompt this thing again. Please try again. Okay, so best practice of software development is to stop there when you create something. Again, as we're trying to write some code, we're going to talk about some good practice of software development. It's about how you try to find like a few lines of code. You define a username, password, username. That's fine. But after you write a piece of code, stop there. If you write a bigger piece of code, you actually want to make sure that each unit of the code works properly, right? So let's stop there and print this to see if this unit of code really works as I expect. So let's do something like that. So then, okay, so let's run this. Okay, so it prints, well, please enter your username. So if I enter, no, actually, let me add some more thing. Access success right here. Awesome. Okay, so let's run again. Okay, so please enter a username. So if I enter something like Don Quixote 107, it will show me access success, which means that because when I enter Don Quixote 107, it will be stored in the username. And I check whether this is a condition. This is condition. Then I'm going to go to the while loop and check. I'm going to ask, is the username, which is Don Quixote 107, not in usernames? You can clearly see in username there's a Don Quixote 107. So this condition is false because is username Don Quixote 107 not in username list? No, it's there. The username Don Quixote 7 is there in the list, so we don't go into the while loop. We skip the while loop and we print access success. Right? So it works. But then if I enter something differently, like please enter your username, I'll say something garbage. I don't care. Uh-oh, error. Unable to find username, blah, blah. Please try again. Perhaps I should do something like this. Just put a space right there. Let's do it again. Error. Unable to find username, blah, blah. Please try again. It doesn't matter. If I do that, as long as if I'm doing this 100 million times, it doesn't matter. As long as if I don't enter the correct username, the program will never stop, and I'm stuck there in an infinite while loop. So that's why if we use a for loop, in this case, you know specific. How do you know specifically the number amount of times you will loop over, right? You don't know. You don't know about it. There's no way to know about it. There's no way to know about such number amount of times you will loop over and you use a for loop, right? So using a while loop is very powerful because you don't need it. Right? You just need to check for the condition. As long as the condition is satisfied, you'll be able to get out of the for. You'll be able to get out of the while loop. The condition. Oh well, yeah. If the condition is satisfied, you get the out of the while loop. But if condition is false, if condition is true, you go into the while loop. But if the condition is false, you go outside the while loop. So that's the thing. This program will loop infinitely a lot of times, not until the user enter the correct username. So Gmax carries. There you go. Success. Right. I'm gonna pause there for a minute. Is there any questions, comment, concern on this piece of code? Yes, I will not erase. I will not erase the code. In fact, I don't erase the code, Patricia, because I only comment those out. So yeah. All right. Okay, seems to be no questions. So let's resume this code. So okay, now I know that if the X is success, I want to enter a password. So I have 5 trials. So I have, let's define the trials over here. Let's define trials over here. 5 trials. So what I want to do is that I want to use a for loop. I want to say I want to prompt the users for 5 times. Maybe not like 5 times, but I want to test if the user enter the password and then it just keep it's just keep being it's just keep getting incorrect password, right? So I want only give users only 5 trials for to input the password. In other words, I'll just only give 5 trials for users to input the password. If they don't input them correctly within those 5 trials, then definitely we're gonna abort the program. In other words, going to exit the program. So we're going to do that. Because in reality, you cannot use a while loop in this case and have the users trying to guess the password, right? Data protection is very important. You don't want people to guess the password by having a lot of chances to do something like that, right? So say, you know what it means to be like that. So in reality, you only have maybe 5 trials to really enter your password, right? Maximum. So let's do that. So while I print X successfully, I want to check while. Maybe I can do something like enter your password. I can do something like enter your password. So print enter your password. Actually not print over here. I say password. Password equals str input again. Enter your password. So what does this thing do? So while the password is not in the password, again, we're going to do something again. We're going to check if the password is in the password list. If it's not in the password list, we're going to go inside this while loop and the trials is greater than 0. So with this piece of code, you can pretty much guess where we're going right now. We first define something like this. Oh, why did it do that? Okay, cool. So in this while loop, not only do we check for the password, we also check if the trials is greater than 0. In other words, we say this is condition right here. We initialize the condition. Right? We initialize the condition. Then we try to compare the condition. Try to compare the condition. Right? So when we try to compare the condition, the last step is probably just going to decrement the condition. Right? What we do before we decrement, we want to test. We want to print something, right? We want to basically keep prompting the user for password and again and again and again. So you know that with this sort of structure, you know that we're gonna try to be in a while loop for only 5 times. At 5 times, we actually want to test for a few things. We want to. The reason why we get access to this while loop is because the user entered the wrong password. If a user entered the wrong password, then we go into the while loop. If a user does not enter the wrong password, we don't enter the while loop. We skip the while loop. This is what is going to be the behavior of the program we're going to do. Trisha, yes, definitely. After the end of class, I'll give you. I won't give you the document. I won't share you the Replit. I'm just gonna give you. I'm gonna throw everything up to the Google Doc, and you're gonna be there and maybe just take a look at them. I only give you like the viewing permission because to avoid like last time scenarios. Yeah. So with this thing, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do like just gonna say a few things. I'm gonna say error, wrong password, and then I'm gonna print the number trials. I'm gonna print number trials. This plus trials, maybe trials, yes, trials remaining. Awesome. And I'm gonna do print, enter your password again, right? So I'm gonna do something like maybe password, enter your password again. So instead of printing exit success over here, let's call that. So enter your password again. I'm gonna print the user for password again and see what happens. Oh, Ivy, the class will end in the next 15 minutes. So with this one over here, I'm gonna do this. So you still remember the last step, which is the documentation, right? So if I do a documentation over here, documentation, I want to document my trials, right? Because I want to loop only 5 times, right? So if we don't document the trials, the user is going to have infinitely many number of attempts to try for the password. So I want to deduct the try those by 1. I think that's totally fine. You don't need to be at the end of the you don't need to be to the end of the session. That's totally fine. That's totally fine. If you have any other matters to attend, that's totally fine. Awesome. So yeah. So we can do something like this. Yes, you're welcome. Don't worry too much about it. Don't sweat it. Yeah. So now remember when we get outside the while loop, we want to either do something, right? We want to either do something. So when we get outside the while loop, the user either fail to enter the password correctly, or they successfully enter or they successfully enter the password, right? So how do we check for that? How do we so specifically check for something like that? So I can do an if statement. So if trials is equal to 0, then I'll just print like maybe access denied. That's denied. Your account will be blocked in the next 24 hours or the next 24 hours. For the next 24 hours. Otherwise, you print access success. Access success. Yeah. So let's see. Let's run this program and see. All right, awesome. No errors. Let's try to put like Don Quixote 107. Awesome. Enter my password. So let's say I purposely enter my wrong password, right? If I do something like this. Oh, I think I'm technically only string, not integers. Well, that's fine. It's just do the string over here. I need to cast that from the string over here. Awesome. So okay, 107. Okay, awesome. So let me do this thing again. Okay, wrong password, 5 trials remaining, and then I only get the thing over there. But perhaps this thing is not accurate because I should have only 4 trials remaining. So what I should do is to put this thing above. I should put this thing above, and then print that number of trials remaining. That's what I should do. Let's try to run this thing again. So donkey okay. 107. Enter wrong password. Or say there's only 4 trials remaining instead of 5 trials, right? Because we need to decrement that first. Do something like this. Wrong password, 3 trials remaining. And then when there's all 0 trials remaining, what we're gonna do? We're gonna exit the program. well, yeah, this one is erroneous. This one is erroneous because we have 0 trials remaining. Then we still have the ability to enter another password. So that's so how can I fix this thing? I can do this thing is greater than equal to maybe 1. And do this thing maybe equal to rate of 1. So only have 5 trials remaining. You can actually do something like that. And so if I do something like this, Don Quixote 107. So put this thing to 1 over here. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It probably doesn't make sense. I would just probably put this thing below right here. Oh, okay. Sorry. I guess my my logic of thinking about this just doesn't make sense at all. So initially, user have 5 more trials. User have 5 more trials until the password got it wrong. Okay. So in reality, I guess I understand this thing wrong. In reality, user have 5 trials. If they enter the wrong password, they have 5 more trials. It's not like the first time it's counted. In reality, if the user enter the wrong password, they have 5 more trials to enter another password. Okay, makes sense. So that's why they should enter another more password to this thing. If I were to do something like this again. I guess I'm wrong this thing. Okay, 107 and do something like this. 5 trials remaining. Okay, X to the 9. Okay, would be blocked. Yeah, this makes sense. I guess this makes sense. I guess it would make sense. Yeah, I guess it would make sense. So when you enter the wrong password, the username works, but the password says it can only contain a string and not integer string. Should add the STR right here. You should add the STR right here. Right? You add the STR right here, or you might be trying to check the STR. Try to cast to string, because otherwise it wouldn't work. Okay, this makes sense because usually if you, I think in a more realistic scenario, if you enter the wrong password, you only have 5 more trials. So the first time you enter the password is not counted as a trial. If you enter the wrong password, you have 5 more trials to enter the password. So in other words, you have 6 trials in total. But the first trial is not counted because they will always assume that you will know your password well enough. Yeah. So this could be the thing. So this could be another security problem. So yeah, again, this is yeah, I guess yeah, this could be one thing very fun to do. There you go. Access denied. Your account will be blocked for the next 24 hours. But if you do something like Donkey Day 107 and you enter the password, say ABCD. So when you enter the correct password, of the ABCD, they say access success. Awesome. That's totally great. But if you were to do something like, maybe again, Donkey Day 107, and you do a password, you have 5 trials left. And in the middle of the trials, you say, now just remember the password, okay? And I'll do ABCD. It will still give you access success. So this is going to be a foolproof program that is going to test for the password. Yeah, it's going to be a password detection program. So when the play is not defined, it's probably because you don't have the quotation over here. Probably because you don't have the quotation over there. Yeah, you could enter when you type in the wrong username. So you do click enter when you had the wrong username. So yes. So again, this program is rather long, but yeah, I know this program is rather long. Yes, it also tests for a lot of other things. Yeah, there are some improvements you can make as well. There's just some very simple scenarios. I did put a quotation username. Yes, I can give you all the code in the remaining of the session. So just give me your email. I'll do it right now. Yeah. So actually, for the time being, I will just put it in Google Doc. I can actually put it in Google Doc. Yes, I can actually put it in Google Doc and invite people for viewing, but not for editing. So that's what it would do, just to avoid the last scenarios, the last time. Yeah, and just put it in Google Doc instead and share it to people. Yes, I will do it right now. I will make a new Google Doc and share it to people on the link so that we can get access to that. You will, however, not unable to get access to, edit. So Python, I can name it as Python session, and I can just copy every single code I had in here. I'll copy every single code I had in here, put it right here. It's gonna be the archive. Awesome. All right, so I'm gonna share it. Again, probably just not gonna. So right here, editors can change permission. Nope. Viewers can come and see. Viewers can commenters can see the option download copy. Yes. Let's do the restricted to only people. Change one link. We want to know what link can view. Yes, it's only for viewers only. Awesome. So it's only for viewers only. So you should be able to do something like this. So again, I will send this thing to your. Actually, I need to send it to the attendees. So right here. So let's just get. So everybody, I already sent you to this Google Doc. You should be able to get access to this Google Doc. You won't be able to modify it, but you can actually do it. Yeah. Not that little is the best. Just keeping on winning against Bryden. That's what only Bryden. But it's also got to stand. That's what. So yeah, so just to recap, in this session we talk about how. So yeah, such as recap in this session. So choose my change. Okay. In this session, we talk about while loops. We introduce another utility called while loop, right? The while loop, the utilities is pretty much similar to that of the for loop, except that it's slightly more complicated than the while loop is. Right? It's slightly more complicated. And we talk about the applications of while loop, probably for password protections, along with the if else. And also for game designs and all this stuff, we actually use while loop in order to the game runs infinitely attempts until the users actually decides, hey, I'm kind of tired of playing games, so I'm gonna go to sleep, something like that. So we also did a very brief, programming application programming using this while loops and other utilities that we learned in the previous sessions. So I hope you can walk away with a lot of new things today. Feel free to copy the code and use that in your own projects. Let me know you have any questions. Yeah. Yes, this actually is my favorite watch. Yeah. My brother bought it in Japan. Yeah. It's actually pretty good. Race, I think I already shared it to everybody. So yes, class is technically over. Yeah. In the next 2 minutes, that is. So feel free to drop some questions. Feel free to drop in some questions. If you don't have any, you can leave. Yeah. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Yeah. feel free to stay back for questions until 5. Yeah.